welcome to what should have been an enjoyable trip down the rabbit hole that is reality. Because reality really is the ultimate reality show. We're here to be your guides and show you just how deep and fascinating it can go.
Because our interests cover and touch many bases.
We snapshot the stories that have caught our eye in the news, science, technology and the environment,
as well as the unexplained mysteries and stories that raise an eyebrow.
As well as our news info that raises serious flags and political banter,
Looking at history, strange tales and the Fortean.
aiming to cover it all, casting light across the whole spectrum of stuff.
So whether you're here listening for knowledge or dipping in for entertainment, this is Christian Lander
And Sylvia Wakes.
We're here as people just like you, passing our social commentary, engaging discussion on what inspires and affects us. So here, welcome once again to the Rabbit Hole That Is Reality radio podcast. You can now find us on our website now, that is rabbithole.thatisreality.co.uk. You can YouTube search Rabbit Hole That Is Reality and subscribe to our channel there, where you can watch and listen to the shows that have been done already. Check us out on Facebook, facebook.com/Rabbit Hole That Is Reality, and find us also on Twitter at Defiant Christian and at Sylvia Dragoon. This is the Rabbit Hole That Is Reality radio podcast. So let's get the rundown of what we've got coming up in today's episode.
National Grid has put forth in a report that they cannot fulfil their role to balance electricity across the grid and blackouts are inevitable.
Woman declared dead awakens just before doctors are about to harvest her organs.
A bill law in Congress has fast-tracked a new trade deal that will allow corporations to be able to sue any governments if they create a ruling law or a court ruling that is counter to the corporation's expected profits.
A debt advice centres closing up shop and the citizens advice bureaus are struggling.
In Florida, now in place is an outright ban in the bill on all electronic devices connected to the internet.
In the environment, the race is against time to stop Britain's oak trees bleeding to death.
As well as over 3,000 organisms found in the surface ice of Lake Vostok, over 3 kilometres below Antarctica.
That's right, in science, a fascinating story of those people who hear before a person has spoken. And it has nothing to do with psychics.
In technology, there's a petition gaining support that seeks to bring back the Xbox One's draconian policies.
A review of a new release, a Europa report, and also of Guilt, La Culpa, a short thriller that has won support from Ridley Scott and Michael Fassbender, that is freely available to download and view on FrostClick via FrostWire. We'll also have Fortean feature is going to be discussing the nocebo effect, the mirror of the placebo effect. Also talking about pareidolia, which is the effect of recognizing shapes, faces and objects, which is an evolutionary effect that fools us into seeing stuff that simply isn't there. Like Jesus in the lid of jam or Marmite, even on toast. So Fortean stories that have also been in the news as well. All this coming up on episode 5 of Rabbit Hole That Is Reality. So the first story we're going to be looking at tonight is the National Grid. They've published a document in the last couple of weeks where in this document it outlines a number of requirements and a number of concerns that they have as the National Grid, and that one of those is that they will not be able to meet supply and demand in the next couple of years as demand outstrips supply. Now, Sylvia, could you give us a bit more information about this and the document that they've published?
Yeah, right. Well, the National Grid is the one who's responsible for the distribution of the energy. Now, in their report, what they're saying is that the private companies that we've got, so we've got a privatised energy industry, and they are not responsible for investing in anything, in any future projects, in any future infrastructure. So what they're doing is they're effectively running it into the ground and just taking all the profits.
They are. This is quite true. Like the privatised energy market, they're saying that they are. It's not the energy companies' the energy companies are saying that it is not their responsibility to build infrastructure.
No, it's
but what they want.
Taxpayers' responsibility.
Yeah, the taxpayers are to fund infrastructure, which they will then have for free, and then run it for free, but will not pay for its maintenance, and they will rake in all the profits of that by selling it to the National Grid to the consumer.
That's right.
So really, it's just that we haven't had an investment in infrastructure of energy of any sufficient size. The only one we're really talking about right now is fracking. Very, very worrying, but that's a different subject completely. We don't really want running off track with this. This really comes to us from Mike Robinson of the UK Column, and the article is up on their website right now called switching the lights off. Now, the National Grid and the Energy Minister, Michael Fallon, has claimed that they have been assured that the lights will not go out. However, their report does say something quite different. So this really is politics, trying to sweeten up what may become reality. It's a little bit round, it's a little bit flat, that kind of double talk. The expectation is strong. And they're looking at building. They are looking to build infrastructure, but of course there's a lot of consumer backlash about this. It's certainly things like nuclear generating power. We're having to rely currently on coal and currently on gas-powered power stations. But we have all these alternatives we could be using.
We do, but nobody will invest in them because it won't bring them as much profit.
That's right,
But then again, not even investing what they've got in now.
No, they're refusing to invest at all because they're saying, well, we don't have to invest. Yeah. It's up to you to invest.
Yeah, we're not going to use our money. We'll just take yours and use that instead.
We'll take all your profits. So yeah, they are saying that they're not going to be able to deal with the demand on electricity. So how about this for a news story of Sylvia? A woman declared dead awakens just before doctors were about to harvest her organs. Now this comes to us from the US, New York City, where else, centre of the universe. That's exactly what happened to 41-year-old Colleen Burns, who arrived at the emergency room at St. Joseph's Hospital. And she was suffering from a drug overdose and mistakenly believed to be dead. Doctors at the centre were about to harvest the woman's organs for transplant before she opened her eyes. Now the full story of this is that she was taken into hospital. She had an overdose of Xanax and Benadryl, and over the course of a week she was declared unresponsive, despite the fact that CT scans and seizures, and she was declared to have irreversible brain damage, and the doctor signed off on using her organs. But as they were about to do so, she woke up. The story of Colleen Burns unfortunately takes a tragic twist. A few days after her recovery, she actually committed suicide. It's highly likely that the reason she had the overdose to begin with, certainly to think of that kind of dose or put her out for a week, was perhaps to commit suicide. This should not be taken away in what the hospital failed in their duty of care. Is that not only did they leave her, they thought she had irreversible brain damage and they were going to harvest her organs. So that should not be taken away from the hospital. The hospital did fail in their duty of care, even if that was her intention to begin with.
Okay, next up we'll be looking at this bill that's being fast-tracked through Congress that will enable any corporation to sue governments if they create a rule or a court ruling that is counter to their expected profits.
I'll jump in quickly before we progress in this article. In the article itself, this is about it's called the Trans-Pacific Partnership, which sounds a lot like it's connected to the major international corporations like the Trilateral Commission and the International Union Creations. It's certainly going to be the same people sitting on the boards and the heads of these organisations. We know it is, because this is really big stuff. But it also is going to affect not just nations and not just countries. It will also be affecting. It uses government in a broad sense, so it can also go down to state law, local council law, new local government law, and that would be of any country. So let's have a quick look at this.
Congress will soon debate whether to fast-track a trade deal that the Trans-Pacific Partnership would give corporations the right to sue national governments if they passed any law, regulation, or court ruling interfering with the corporation's expected future profits.
Yeah, so now what triggered in my mind about this was Monsanto. It's the first thing that went red flag in my head. Now think of the culling of the GMO crops like in Canada, India, Pakistan, across Europe. Now these crops are part of their forecast of production, and thus their expectation of profit when they will come to sell the products. We know that they have such intertwined connections between Monsanto and the lawmakers in the US. Think about the creation of the Monsanto Act, where the private corporation literally has been presidentially banned not to be prosecuted, not to be brought to court, never to be brought into disrepute. So we know these ties are deep. It's likely to pass. So effectively, if the company or a corporation wants to go to another company and take water from its aquifers or ruin its rainforest, it can do that. And then if it goes on not to sell everything, it'll just claim loss of profits as well. Loss of profits and sue them. Oh, so you didn't get everything we got out of your country. This country's going to have to pay us up the rest.
Yeah. Oh, no, we didn't cut down all of your rainforest and get all this stuff that we wanted, and that's your fault.
Well, yeah.
So Nestle doing very similar things as well. They're obtaining ownership of plants, grasses, staple foods, and even water. Now, on top of this, if they can sue because they're not making quota or expectation of profit, the potential of this is in a draconian sense of a dystopia. Countries where they operate could be forced to become a labour encampment, working to keep the country going and not getting sued. So that means that if a company comes to a country's government and goes, we want to do this to your country, say fracking for example, and the government goes, yeah, alright, you can do that. So then they do that, but they don't get their expected forecast of the profits, then
The country has to make up the country has to make up the shortfall, and then will also face suing for not having enough resources because the company didn't make their expected profits.
Yeah.
I mean, the concept of that is very, very worrying.
It's very dangerous.
I mean, the reason I wrote some of that text into that because I really wanted to highlight the draconian sense of dystopia. I mean, if you are a company, I mean, you look at any kind of film that kind of highlights the future in a dystopian sense. You usually have very, very elite kind of white areas, in the sense that they are grassy, they are lovely, they are lush. They have everyone living on absolute destitute and waste, being forced to work like 100 hours a week, whatever. Yeah, there's 100 hours a week. Yeah, there is. Just to make money for themselves, or just to make enough money to live, because the company's quotas are so high.
Yeah, and they can't get out of it.
Think of the people in China right now who would be forced to make fucking iPhones and shit.
They're the ones who are being housed in the factories where they sell their iPhones.
18 hours a day.
Yeah. And they get all their food and their clothing and everything from the same company, which just gives them just enough to rent their place in order for them to keep going back to work.
Yeah, and the quota every year gets higher because the expectation of profit increases. We can see that essentially inflated to country level, world level. That's probably far future stuff, but when you look at this law going through and a number of other laws that have been passed around this kind of thing, when they work together as gears.
Oh yeah, you can't take any action against a big company like Monsanto.
Yeah,
So,
there's a prime example itself. I actually wrote that in there. Is that they have the ability to be so interconnected. This is going ahead, guys. You can check out this over on labelnotes.org, and this is called the Trans-Pacific Partnership. Check it out and read about it. A lot of the news places are picking up on it, and they're discussing it. And if the news companies, mainstream ones, are going, wait a minute, in terms of the bigger stories behind that, I think its impact is going to be very big if it passes.
Okay, up next, we've got debt advice centres closing up shop because they've been inundated. The volunteer run centres, and they've been struggling to cope. Now, Christian, you've had a conversation with the person involved in this. Would you like to tell people some more about it?
Yeah, I will, and that's only because I had a conversation. A lady came from my workplace. I saw the fact that she was wearing a debt advice name badge on her lapel. So I asked her, hey, how you doing? My name's Christian. I do some stuff, and I'm a freelance journalist. Could you give me some insight into the fact that you guys are on the front line dealing with people who are coming to you who have lost their homes, who've lost their businesses, who've lost everything they have, or they're trying to find a way to cope. Or what advice are you giving them, or what kind of stories are people bringing to you? And she gave down a couple of examples, and we've arranged to meet in the next couple of weeks to actually give a more formal interview, which perhaps we should include on All the Reality or one of our sister radio shows. So, but she was just saying that the kind of economic problems that people are facing, it's because there's not enough money. People can't afford to pay for the car, and therefore they can't get to work. They can't afford to look after the kids. The kids are going into care. It's all literally so interlocked and intertwined with each other. We literally are living on a brink point. We really are living on that.
We're living on the breaking point.
Breaking point, yeah. One of the things that she did mention also is the fact that they're closing up shop. I would have thought, in a time like this, there would be more debt advice centres to help people. I mean, a lot of them are volunteer run. They obviously have a strategy in terms of how they cope. That's how they would help people. I guess they have some kind of formulas, ways of practice of how they do these things. But she was saying they're just inundated, and they can't cope. And she told me that there's so many advice centres that are closing up because there's not enough people to run them. No one's because the people who are in them are volunteers, and they can't look after themselves. They're struggling to get to work. They're struggling to give the advice because they also need the advice.
Afford themselves to be volunteers in order to go to these places.
Yes, that was one of the stories she says to me. She has 2 volunteers in her centre couldn't get to work to be volunteers to help people who can't get to work, and you're seeing it just kind of fall apart at the seams.
Vicious circle kind of thing you got going on there.
It is. It's a downward spiral of society. There are certainly alternatives to a way of society, but this capitalist-led infinite profit, infinite growth market is just not good. It's not good for anybody but the people who are making huge amounts of profit.
And it's not sustainable in the long run.
It's not sustainable in the long run. It's designed to fail from the outset. I mean, of course, we can prop it up, we can patch it in loads of different ways, but ultimately the bubble is going to burst.
Yeah.
And seeing this effect on the streets, seeing this, people who are face to face with these people. I mean, I went to the Frameworks head office today. I actually went in there because I'm sick and tired of never getting a reply from them by email. Even the phone call being fobbed off. I went into their head office today in Nottingham. And again, I was fobbed off by the woman on the reception. She says, "Oh yes, we have some leaflets for you." I don't want leaflets. I actually want to be able to talk to someone. You guys aren't replying. It's just, "Oh, we've got a PR person," and she gave me his name. I says, "Yeah, this is the guy I've emailed twice. I've yet to have a reply." "Well, he deals with all the PR and press." I says, "Look, I've emailed you in a friendly journalist way, as a citizen, as a concerned citizen, who wants to learn more about what is facing our people on the streets and the frontline services that are out there talking to these people. What kind of information will be given them to help themselves?" And she says, "Oh yes, you spoke to this guy. Just also send him a list of the emails you've been emailing." "Well, can I just speak to him?" "Well, no, he's on his lunch at the moment. Here's some leaflets." And she repeated the "here's some leaflets to help you. Here's some leaflets." It must be about 4 or 5 times.
So she just wanted you to go away.
She did. What infuriated me more, the reason I went in there, is I was going past, I finished work early, I was going past, and there must have been about 40 people stood outside, smoking. I don't know exaggeration, somewhere between 30 and 40 people. I even got video on my phone because I was like, what the fuck is this? So, 30, 40 people outside Frameworks office, all smoking and chuffing outside. And every one of these looked like a middle class kind of person. Everyone looks really respectable. Everyone looks like they've got a nice hairdo. So a frontline service where you're, in a sense, you're not earning much money. You kind of look okay. You kind of know when someone has a bit more money than others due to their outlook and their stance. All these people look like they're certainly going into lower middle class. They look like they have like 40,000 a year jobs. And these people are just happy-go-lucky. When I'm speaking to them, they're like they were in a fucking cloud days. "Oh yeah, it's like here's some leaflets over there. Wait, my phone's ringing." "Yeah, I can hear your phone ringing, but we're also having a conversation." That's what I said to her. So actually, the phone should come after. So if you're cutting me this conversation off to have that one. That is honestly the conversation I had with a woman on the reception at the Framework head office today.
Wow, that is really bad. I mean, just for the PR purposes, that is really bad.
I don't care. I mean, had it only been 1 or 2 messages or whatever, it has been 6 emails. It has been 6. I've been to there before. I spoke to people who work outside. And generally, all I want to do is I want to get the message out there about how they're dealing with people publicly. Effectively, I'm trying to fucking help them.
Well, they clearly don't want your help.
Well, they're clearly living in their own fucking bubble. Clearly.
Clearly, yeah.
We're coming up on the break now, and on the other side, we're going to be talking about the race against time to stop Britain's oak trees bleeding to death. In science, we have a fascinating story about those who can hear people speak before the person has even completed speaking. It has nothing to do with psychics. The technology petition that is spreading its fire across the internet that is trying to bring back the Xbox One's draconian policies. A review of a new release, the Europa Report, and also The Guilt. There's a short thriller that has won awards, and support from Ridley Scott and Michael Fassbender. And also in our Fatian feature today, we're breaking that into 3 different parts. We'll be discussing the nocebo effect, that is a mirror of the placebo effect. Pareidolia, the effect of recognizing shapes, faces and objects that makes us see stuff that simply isn't really there. And in for tea and stories, my god, we've got some funny stories that have been in the press recently. All this coming up on the other side of our break today. Across the spectrum of topical talk and news that raises an eyebrow. Science, the environment, technology, mysteries, strange tales, quotidian, that is both informative and entertaining. As we spread our wings and catch our stride, you can find us on the web at rabbithole.reality.co.uk, on YouTube, search Rabbit Hole That Is Reality and subscribe to my channel there to watch and listen as many have done so already. On Facebook, facebook.com/Rabbit Hole That Is Reality. Follow us on Twitter, Define Christian, and at Sylvia Dragoon for commentary, insight and conversation. This is the Rabbit Hole That Is Reality radio show. Welcome back to Rabbit Hole That Is Reality. My name is Christian Leonard and I'll be your host for the second half of the show. Sylvia has had to dash out to work, so she says, Christian, just carry on, the show must go on, as they say. So, here we are going to be talking about the environment on this side of the break, the race against time to stop Britain's oak trees bleeding to death. Over 3,000 organisms have been found on the surface ice layer of Lake Vostok, 3 kilometres below Antarctica, that has never ever seen light for over 3 million years. They have no idea what the ecosystem down there is, but clearly it's fascinating. Also, fascinating story. To support that, we have the story of a number of people who can hear people before they speak. Nothing to do with psychics or mediumship or any of that bullshit. This is science, and it's absolutely fascinating. And going back also to the draconian policies of the Xbox One, it appears that gamers want to bring them back because of the type of things they are losing by not having it. Very strange. I also have a review of the new release Europa Report, and also The Guilt, which is a short thriller that has won awards and support from Ridley Scott, and it's freely available to download and view on FrostClick via FrostWire. So, are you a gamer? Are you looking forward to the next generation of console iterations and console hardware? The Wii U, of course, is already out, the PlayStation 4 and the definitely named Xbox One. Obviously they're coming out in 2013, and Microsoft's Xbox One has not been having a good time at all. Not long after the console was launched, Microsoft revealed really heavy restrictions around games, that you can only be transferred once between friends. There was no trade-in system. you could, for instance, if you had a game that you bought in a shop, you put it in your console, it forcibly installs, and you put the game back on the shelf, and that's it. It's kind of frustrating for a lot of people. Therefore, a lot of people like to use it by the disc. You couldn't lend it to your mate's house; it wouldn't work. Well, anyway, so Microsoft, after being literally punched quite hard by successive blows during the Sony press conference, and in fact there was a 20-second long Sony chant during their press conference, but I think the business model of Microsoft saw that and knew if you talk to anybody, everyone's going, I'm going to buy a PlayStation 4, I'm not buying an Xbox One or a Spybox, as they're frequently being called. So, but Microsoft turned tail. It says we're going to take this away now, we're going to not have DRM on our discs. Well, it appears that on the website change.org there's been a submitted petition to bring back the Xbox One's DRM policies to give us the console that everyone was promised at E3. Now this is kind of strange because this is gamers who are saying that we were uninformed consumers at the time and they did not understand the benefits of the system for the decision to remove them, to have those features, and then of course to remove those useful features, to obviously counter what happened to the massive backlash. It really was a massive backlash from the fans. So, this petition, entitled Microsoft Give Us Back the Xbox One We Were Promised at E3, so far it's got around 10,000 signatures and more. However, a lot of those names are really stupid who've signed on. There's like Valos Skywalker I saw, Todd McGoat, Phil McCracken were on there, and there was a lot of obviously genuinely legitimate sounding names. But of course, what do you think about that? Do you like the idea if you're a gamer and you were going to buy your Xbox One, and then of course you realise, shit, they're fucking around with DRM, I can't lend a game, I can't trade it in, can't do anything with the game once I've got it, and then you see the company switch code, and now would you see them switch code back again to have that system back in place? But that's really going to confuse a lot of people, so I don't think Microsoft's going to go with this. There hasn't actually been an official response from Microsoft regarding this position. But, let's see what happens. Let's see how the cookie crumbles and see what goes on there. I mean, technology is amazing, it really is. But check out this. This is back to biology, really, in a sense. People who can hear people speak before they see their lips move fully. Now, I've read this and I went, what? It sounds like someone's going to shout psychic ability. But now this is completely illogical, based in science. Now, light does indeed travel faster than sound. It really does. So Helen Thompson summarised a New Scientist issue. It was last week's issue because their new one came out today at the time of recording. Elliot Freeman are from the City University of London, and a man that they've obviously been working with recently. His name they've given him by initials, just PH. Now, sound and light arrive in our environments at different speeds, and our brain interprets at different speeds. However, we perceive them as arriving simultaneously. Now, PH, after a surgery, started commentating first while watching TV that the audio and visual were always out of sync. And he started realising this was also happening with his own voice. As he was about to say something, he already heard what he was going to say in his head, for his jaw moved fully. Now, what happened is that they did a scan of his brain, and they found that he had 2 lesions in areas that play a role in hearing, movement, and time in the brain's perception of them. So what was happening? It must be kind of strange, really, because it's like the audio sync. If you ever watched a video and they're slightly out of sync, it can be really frustrating. So what's happening really is he's seeing people's lips move. His brain is interpreting the words that are being said. But of course, then the sound hits him. Like afterwards, he obviously has an understanding of the difference in time it takes to reach the head. So the brain's processing slightly differently. And they have a number of people there who have a very similar experiences going on. I found that really, really fascinating that they are literally seeing and hearing in their mind, because of course the mind fills in the words of when you see the lips start to move. So you're seeing the image, and then you're presuming the word really, rather than hearing the word, and then you fill in the sentence of each word as it adds along. But then you're hearing it slightly after. That's going to be really, really confusing. But yeah, that's what A New Scientist was talking about last week, and I found the story so fascinating I had to share it with you guys. So 3,000 unique organisms have been found in the water of Lake Vostok and the 3 kilometers of ice. Now, for those who don't know, Lake Vostok was actually found during the end of World War II, and it really wasn't looked back to go to until more recently, in the last 10-15 years or so. Now, by volume, Lake Vostok is the 7th largest lake on Earth, and it covers more than 3,700 meters of ice underwater. It's the largest subglacial lake known so far. Now, there's actually a number of other lakes in Antarctica. There's over 400 subglacial lakes that have been found so far. There's also subglacial rivers and streams, so you have an entire network under the ice between 3 and 4 kilometers under the ice. These things have never seen the air. They've never, the water has not interacted with the atmosphere in the air at all for more than 3 million years. That is incredible. That what they perceive of what's happening down there is they wanted to know whether there is extremophiles that might be down there. Extremophiles are, organisms that breed and have an ecosystem in an extreme environment, such as those that are near black smokers, those that are in the desert, those that are in deep underwater pressure. And they've indeed found entire ecosystems around the world. So they're thinking, well, this could in fact be happening in this effectively fishbowl, hidden under the ice. 3 million years, it's never felt or seen the air. No light penetrates down that far. So what's down there? What's keeping this water liquid? So what they're assuming, they believe it's going to be subthermal vents that are heating the water. Now, it must be said also that this water they've checked in Lake Vostok and found 3,507 unique organisms so far. These are actually in the surface ice, so they're not, strictly speaking, in the water. These are actually from a level of ice that is above the water, but it's not in the liquid water itself. So it's a lot less dense than it is of the compact ice above. So it allows you literally to have prime ice cores and information stored in ice brought back up to the surface, or where they can examine what these kind of organisms are. But 3,507 recorded so far. That's just on a number of ice core drills. What's really, really important about Lake Vostok, it provides in many ways a experimental area of how to be safe, how to be secure in regards to going into a liquid lake and being not contaminating the environment. There is evidence to show that Europa, which is one of the moons around Jupiter, has in fact a liquid ocean underneath it. That is presumption, because the way that the ice appears on its surface to be cracked, which likely means it's moving on a liquid body of water, and the ice is thick on top. So it provides effectively a test area for experiments where we're going to be taking vessels, or going to drill through the ice all the way out to Europa, where we're going to be testing for life that is evolved completely separately from the Earth. The ones that are 3,000 kilometers below the surface of Antarctica, of course, have at one time been part of the Earth's ecosystem, but they've evolved completely differently. 3 million years of evolution, around black smokers, around subthermal vents down there. They may have evolved completely differently. We have no idea what to expect down there. Whether we'll see fish is like, well, who knows? But obviously out on Europa, we're talking about a completely alien environment that has obviously evolved or developed as a planet completely separately. As a moon of a planet. And that really is why it's so important, why Lake Vostok remains pristine. Imagine what the water tastes like. But anyway, the 94% of the sequences found so far of these organisms have been bacteria, and 6% have been Escherichia, and this comes from a citation from Chautauqua, and this has been edited by Michael Watson of the Roslin Institute of the University of Edinburgh, a large number of scientists. All the data regarding what they found at Lake Vostok actually is open source. It's actually gone straight to the web. It was received on September 17th, 2012. It's been peer-reviewed that has been published this past month. So really worth checking out that, guys. And talking of Europa, which is the reason why I've put them in the order they are, because I really want to talk about Europa afterwards. There's a film that's come out this year, you can go and see it. It's called a Europa Report. Now, if you're a fan of Stanley Kubrick's 2001: A Space Odyssey, and the other books that were wrote in that series, such as 2010, 2051, 3001: A Final Odyssey, that kind of alien communication that was happening in that film, where they have no perception of each other. They're perceiving each other in very, very different ways. So, Europa Report really touches on that. It really has that kind of feel. It feels like a cross between 2001, Sunshine, and yeah, it even has a feel of a really alien, in the sense that it actually truly is alien. And very claustrophobic as well. It's like a phenomenal sci-fi movie. It's been shot in a very realistic way. It's on a manned spaceship to the outer solar system, but it's going to Jupiter's moon Europa. It's a private science mission. It's made up of scientists on board. I think there was 4 men and there's a couple of women who are heading out there. They are not they obviously are actors, but they're active in the sense that they're real scientists. They can calculate risks. There's no crazy ones, as it were. It's really good in that way. It kind of feels like a real mission going out there and facing real life situation. The camera shots inside the ship itself are from the short circuit videos and the spacesuit's helmet, and so it kind of gives it a real feel, like you're watching real footage from NASA. And there's some really good jaw-dropping sequences in there as well. The landing is really good, and you have a really good music score around that as well. Some really good weightlessness scenes, as well as a plumbing incident towards the end of the movie where I don't want to tell you about it actually. They knock a plate off and all this liquid comes out, and how it starts to corrode the suit. And a really fantastic film. It's really worth looking at. I think it's when they land on Europa, they find there's some strange electromagnetic interference happening, and when they head out, one of the ladies heads out onto the ice, and the ice appears to be reacting to the electromagnetic suits and the electromagnetic technology they have. It appears to cause blackouts, and there appears to be some kind of communication draining and rapid energy going through. And then the ice is kind of lighting up, very much like a bioluminescent style. Very cool. I don't want to give too much away because I really like you to go and watch this film, especially if you're a fan of 2001 and you like your Sunshine and your alien films, and you like stories that have a purpose. And it's ones that are shot in a way that's not over the top Hollywood. That's a really good film. That also leaves questions. That also leaves follow-up potential. It really draws you into the drama of what those astronauts, those scientists, were experiencing. Good film, really good. Our next review is from Roxbury Productions and Arcolia Productions, written and directed by David Vittori, and the film is called La Culpa, The Guilt. It's a Latin American short film. Basically, it features a cast of only 4 people. There's a guy and his girlfriend. They've just found out that she's pregnant. But while he's talking to his best friend on the phone about how happy she is, she's attacked by a mugger. She's knocked down, hits her head, and she dies. She's dead. Then the film kind of follows the direction of the main character's state of mind. Where he truly is. He's gone from love to happiness to despair to anger to revenge, and trying to find his assailant's apartment. He takes a gun, extracts his revenge. But that's only half the story. In fact, that's not even a core of the story. From here, as he's now shot this guy who's just killed his wife, his son comes out of the bathroom, and his guilt consumes him. You find the entire film then takes on this aspect very much like the Twilight Zone. You find him exploring his own mind, what's going wrong. Is he trying to make his escape round and round the spiral staircase? He appears to be going nowhere. The floor numbers do not descend round and round the same floor. The names on the doors do not change. His mind is confused. He's trying to rationalise the unrationable. And eventually he decides to go back to the room, where he goes through the door, again with a gun. And events kind of replay. The guy who killed his wife is now still alive in the chair. Events are replaying themselves out differently. To say any more will spoil this brilliantly made and directed short film, and that's The Guilt. And that is available to view and to watch and download completely free from frostclick.com via Frostwire and also on the Vimeo Video. That is The Guilt, and it's available now. Okay, so today in our 14 features, we're going to be talking about 3 different phenomena, as it were. The first one is we're going to be talking about the nocebo effect. Now, the nocebo effect is the mirror of the placebo effect. I find this very, very interesting because it makes you ask a lot of questions. The nocebo effect is almost a relatively unknown term to a lot of people, which is why we want to talk about it. So, Sylvia, what is the placebo effect? And we'll talk about the nocebo effect.
Well, the placebo effect is where somebody is given something like a sugar pill, which isn't actually going to affect them at all, and they are told that it will. So they're told that it's a drug that will make them better, for example. But in their belief that it's going to make them better, they actually do see an effect of becoming better.
Even though there's no active ingredients inside the pill, or inside the treatment, or the treatment itself. It doesn't even have to be a pill, it could be an actual treatment. It could be just someone putting their hand on each other and saying it will make you feel better.
Exactly.
And all of a sudden, you feel better. Which I always find really interesting. If you look at the people who do massage, people who claim to do healing, they have a belief that they will make you feel better. And the people who are the patients go to them in the belief that having that experience will make them feel better.
And of course they go away feeling better.
Well, the nocebo effect is the reverse of that. So the nocebo effect really is, if you were to give someone a pill, or we'll go with the pill idea, it's quite a simple idea to conceptualize, and you believe that it's going to have negative side effects. So what happens then is that people actually go on to have the negative side effect. So it's when they experience a harmful or unpleasant or even an undesirable effect, from a placebo treatment. It has no effectivity, so it has no active ingredient inside it, so it could just be the sugar pill, as they call it. But then it has the effect that is of detriment to the person, because they believe it's going to hurt, or they believe it's going to have a bad effect on them. But it affects just as many people as the placebo effect. And the thing is, a lot of drugs are actually called placebo or pseudo drugs on purpose. They're actually branded. So I know, for instance, when you used to work at the pharmacy, you had drugs that actually were called pseudo products.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, it was like pseudo, then had the active name, then the green, and that's often what they would subscribe. So what happens is the doctor is the one issuing the pseudo drug, to make them feel better. And you know what that's like. You kind of think, well, you're not giving them anything active.
No, it's just their belief that is helping them get through it.
Yeah. So the nocebo effect kind of came in. It was a guy called Walter Kennedy, 1961. He coined the term, and it's used to describe the results of negative reactions to the placebo effect. So it kind of comes from Latin words. The Latin term for is "I will harm," as with the placebo effect is I will please. It's like a mirror effect, really. So I find this really, really interesting. There's actually been quite a few scientific reports into this, just as not quite as many as the placebo effect, but it's still relative. There's still quite a few coming out. In Japan, there was this study. It was done a few years ago where they tested 57 children, or rather, they put them into 2 halves, really. Not that 57 actually is a half, but I guess they split them up. There's 57 children involved in the experiment. Almost half of them. They blindfolded them, right? So they're both blind tested.
Right. So they couldn't see what they were being.
No, they couldn't see what was happening to them. And they were told, or one half was told that the lacquer leaf, which is a kind of a poison ivy, which when you stroke it on your skin, it kind of creates a rash effect. Your skin kind of doesn't blister, but it has a little rash happens to it. It's kind of red, the skin reacts. And then they had a normal leaf, has no oak leaf or something. So they told half the children they were going to be stroked with the rash leaf, and they told the other half they were going to be stroked with the normal leaf. But actually what they really did was a double-blind test. So they actually stroked the ones that they told they were going to be stroked with a normal leaf, the lacquer leaf, and the ones that they told were going to be stroked with the lacquer leaf, a normal leaf. Brilliant experiment, double-blind. But yeah, the opposite effect happened. Those who were stroked with the normal leaf had the lacquer leaf effect happen on them.
And those who struck with the lacquer leaf had no effect.
Had no effect. Brilliant.
That's really cool.
And it happened to every single one of them. So it was a nut belief in what was going to happen, an adverse effect.
Yeah, so all these kids who believed they'd be affected by this lacquer leaf.
Yeah.
But because they didn't know it was a lacquer leaf, it didn't have any effect on them at all.
No. This reminds me of a dream I once had. I must have only been about 13 years old. 13, 14. That's kind of always stuck with me because I remember the dream so vividly. And that probably is the reason why what happened. I was in a dream, and I was running away from somebody. Yeah, as you do. You know, you can't have them dreams where you're kind of running away really, really slowly.
Oh yeah, I've had a couple of those.
Yeah,
terrible.
No, you kind of fucking run through treacle or some shit, right?
Yeah.
But I was aware that I was in a dream, so I knew I had to wake up.
You had a lucid dream.
Yeah, a lucid dream. Right? I was aware that I was dreaming. I was running across a bridge, you know. So anyway, I found a pipe and I put my forearm on the pipe.
Okay.
So I leaned on it, and then I realised there was a steam pipe and it was really, really hot. So I took my arm off it, and then I woke up. Now, it wasn't immediate, but over the course of the day, where I'd actually burned myself in the dream, my skin had started to peel, like it had been burned, like sunburn, like sun cream. Not like sun, like when you have sunburn on your arm.
Like a blister.
Yeah, when you don't put sun cream on an area of your skin when the sun's really hot. It started to go red.
Or like
and it was
when
blistering.
I burned myself in that oven once because my skin came out with a blister.
Yeah, it didn't hurt, it just my skin started to peel in the area. But it was the area in my dream where I burned my arm. I told you about it before, but yeah, it was a... And that I guess, now thinking about it, is that effect.
Yeah, it is. It's like when, this happens quite a lot, actually. You know that effect where, if somebody has a really deep belief in Christianity, they end up with the spots going through the wrist.
Oh, you mean like the stigmata?
Yeah, stigmata, that's the word I was looking for. Or the ones where they got it through the hands, which that wouldn't have happened back then.
No, the belief is, of course, just staying on the word stigmata. For those who don't know what that is, some devout people believe that they have the wounds of Christ appear on their body.
Yeah.
And there's been quite a few reports all around the world, actually, for a long period of time. There's certainly reports going back throughout the Middle Ages of people having spontaneous stigmata. Oddly enough, it's always through the hands.
Happened in modern times.
It does indeed happen in modern times. The wounds appear on the wrists, on the wrists, usually on the palm of the hands, and on the feet. But that's really weird because it's a very modern perception on the cross. When you go to a church, for instance, particularly Catholic churches, because they always tend to show Christ hanging on the cross.
And he's got nails through his hands.
That's right. However, in the way that they used to pin them up in the Roman times, that wouldn't happen because literally their own weight would have just ripped off the hand. They actually put it through the wrist.
Yeah, because if you put it through the wrist, those two bones there would have held the person up. But
Yeah.
if you put it through the hand, just
The hand will
straight through.
your hand will, it'll be there for a few days, but your weight it will rip off and rip out your hand.
Yeah.
In terms of crucifixion, their devout belief in Christianity, or rather the wounds of Christ, have those wounds appear on them.
Yeah,
So that is exactly like that effect, really. There was another study as well that I was reading about earlier, and that was in regards to a number of high school. So these were university students, and they were told that they were going to wear a headset, and that they were told that there would be an electric current passing through, and they would most likely experience a headache. However, it was a double-blind test, and there was no electricity through. Those people who were told that they would have electricity running through, and they might experience a headache, over 60% of them, 66% in terms of the statistics, said they experienced a headache. But of course,
even though they had no,
there was no current.
Actually,
no, it was just wearing a headband. But again, it's almost like an expectation of pain, or an expectation of negative effect makes it happen.
Yeah, your expectation of it's going to happen makes it happen.
Yeah, exactly. Fascinating experience, the nocebo effect. And I think we were talking about earlier, off recording, about people who have an in-out belief in like crystals, and they collect stuff. You know, they want to surround themselves with. Okay, let's start that section again in this, and only in the sense of an explanation. That is, there's a lot of people out there who believe, you know, in crystals and energy and spirits, that kind of stuff. They're fluffy, you know. I don't particularly have any view either way about this stuff. a lot of them that I speak to, in terms of the groups that I've attended over the period of time that I've been an investigator and a researcher, there's a lot of people who collect stuff. They collect like fucking crystals, they collect stone, like kind of things they can put in their pockets, that makes them feel better. But they constantly believe that that bad things happen to them, that spirits are out to get them, or that they've got bad luck, and they just seem to collect shit. They start collecting tarot cards. They collect more crystals. They have more crystals around their neck. They're wearing stuff around their wrists. They've got it in their pockets, in the belief that it gives them good luck, or it will ground them to take the negativity away.
See that sounds more like a sort of a drug thing.
Well, yeah, I think there's an addiction when it comes to collecting stuff like that. It's like I can only feel good if I hold this stuff. I've got to have it in my pocket when I'm at work, whenever the boss tells me off, or whether I feel bad.
Yeah, and if I lose it, then it's going to go away.
If I lose it, I feel really bad. And in fact, saying you lose it, that's exactly what happened to my friend a few weeks ago. They indeed did lose their crystal, and they were depressed as fuck. They were crying and shit over the course of the few days, and they were whining about the fact they've lost their stone. And it's like...
Well, this is like they have such a belief in that something negative is going to happen to them.
If they don't have it...
That they have to keep collecting all this stuff that is supposed to give them positive feeling, but because they keep believing that the negative stuff's going to happen to them, they're like, well, I need another positive thing, and I need another positive thing, and I need another one.
Yeah.
In order to balance it out, and it's like... It does sound like an addiction.
Like it becomes an addiction, that's correct. Crazy, crazy stuff. But absolutely fascinating. That's the nocebo effect. And if you'd like to learn more about that, I've posted some information in the links below, and also to the studies that are related to this too. So Sylvia, what do you know about pareidolia? Apophenia. What do you know about it?
Well, I know pareidolia is is your brain's interpretation of something that isn't actually what it's interpreting as. So, like, you see a shadow and you interpret it as a person, but it's not. It's just a blurry shadow, like you're covered or something.
Yeah, I mean, I see this kind of shit all the time in my house, especially in the bedroom at night, right? Because we have lots of different objects around the room that are kind of like person height. The chest of drawers, there's a fucking coat hanging up on a stand in there. There's a wardrobe, but in darkness, when you turn the lights off, because we got like blackout curtains, all you see is like there's like darker than dark shapes. So the room's dark, and there's this dark, and you can't help but think there's someone over there, even though you know what it is. You know it's a fucking coat. You know it's a wardrobe. Your brain still says there's someone there. It gets me all the fucking time.
Yeah, and it makes you really paranoid as well. It's like the shadow at the bottom of our stairs.
Yeah, but it's just
when
that
we went down there, it looked like somebody was outside on the fence, but there was nobody there.
No, there is no one there. You look through. It's only because you look through it and it creates the shape of the shadow outside the window. When we look through the front door, creates an artificial shape of a head and the shoulders of a person, and you think, there's someone. But you know, you've seen it 1,000 times. You've been down there 1,000 times. You know it's not the case, but your brain still says it is. Funny as fuck shit, because a lot of people seem to believe they can see spirits. A lot of people they say that someone follows them around. Well, no, it's just that you live in a house with lots of objects and shit.
Yeah. It's like you go in our bedroom, we've got my cuddly cheetah, and the big one, and sometimes it ends up on the box, and you go and turn the lights off, and it's about head height, so it gives you a scare because it's even got a head shape.
It does, yeah. So yeah, pareidolia really is it's a quirky piece of evolution that we've all been subject to. We can all have all got a funny story about how you've been tricked by a shadow and you go and have a look and it's like, what? But basically what it is our brain is preconditioned to see these things. Basically it's a recognition of like shapes, faces and patterns. People who see orbs, alright, this pisses me right off, right? They look at an orb, fucking it's a piece of dust in front of a camera, but the camera and the flash, they're so close to each other, it basically creates it as an object which is quite close to the camera lens. So it's a piece of dust, but it flies near the lens, the flash goes off, it illuminates the dust, and it appears as a circular object. It's in every instruction manual of every digital camera, and some people seem to believe that they're ghost vessels, or spirit vessels. Okay?
The worst one is the one where they say they can see faces in them.
The people say they can see faces in them. But of course there is an arrangement, of course, in the way that ball, the orb has been created. That appears to be shading, lighting, and people claim they can see all kinds of different shit in there. And the best example I can give is look at the moon. Okay, people for thousands and thousands of years claim they can see a man in the moon. Other people say they can see a woman carrying a basket over her shoulder. The African basket. They have that long stick, and they have two massive baskets they carry it over their shoulder.
Oh yeah, I know the one.
People say they can see that. People say they can see a sad face, an angry face. It's all perception. It's all pareidolia. It's what your brain is wired to see this stuff. And the way that it does this, really, I guess it's an evolutionary thing. I think because we want to make sure, do we run or do we fight? It's the fight or flight thing. The brain needs to know if that is an enemy or it's something sensible.
Yeah, so you would, because a predator or an enemy wouldn't come to you face on, they come to you the side or from behind.
Yeah,
so you'd have to see.
Your brain recognises that shape, and then it makes you react. And yeah, if you look up in the clouds, for instance, I mean, I've looked up at clouds and you see things like, you see the shape of England, sometimes, or you see, it looks like a giant, looks like Africa, or it looks like a rabbit, or...
See animals or plants, flowers, you see all sorts in clouds.
I think the major example that most people see is they believe that there is an alien race on Mars, and that the face on Mars is symbolic of a message being sent to humanity. These people are very silly. Very, very silly indeed.
I've seen that picture. The only reason it actually looks like a face, because it kind of does with the shading.
It does.
But it's because the picture that they used was a very low definition camera. If you go look at it now, it doesn't look like that.
No. So, like you said there, it was low definition for the time. It's high definition for the time. But
it was high definition for the time. It's low definition for now.
Okay, so basically what happened is the Viking probe, it went over, I think it was 1976, it's July time, it's actually coming probably to an anniversary, I think it was July 25th, and it's the Cydonia range, and it famously caught a picture of the face on Mars, and basically it was a PR stunt that went wrong.
Yeah, there was mention of that as well.
It's the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, NASA. They, a bit of spooky music here. We're not going to go for the spooky music there. We're not going to go for the spooky music. We're going to keep on story and get this out of the way, really. So yeah, it's a PR story that went upside down, and they were trying to get more public support for further missions to Mars. So this says they shaded the picture in more than what it was, and yeah, it does indeed look a bit like a face.
It does.
You can identify nose, chin, but it is just a mountain range where the sun's coming obviously down, and it's created that shadow effect. But they increased those shadow effects to gain more support for doing more missions.
So they made it look more like a face on purpose.
Yeah, but massive misguided conclusions over that. However, science has proven that completely correct, because the Global Surveyor in 1997, 2001 did further passes over that in super high definition. It's not there. It's nothing, and it's just a mountain range.
Yeah, it is. In
fact, if you can go on Google Mars now, and you can have a look at it, you can see the face how it was, and what it looked like, what the Jet Propulsion picture is, or what it actually is, and you can arrange where the sun is as well, so you can see how the shape is created.
As you can see where the shadows fall.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, talking of Mars, in 2008, there was a funny story that happened on Mars. Now, the Spirit rover, that is happily exploring Mars right now, they took a wide scan picture of the environment. And you can see the picture, the original picture. Obviously, it's a low scan, a really wide panoramic view. Now, unfortunately, some idiot decided to focus on one small square of the massive panoramic view.
Right.
This small square appears to show a rock. It is a rock, right? But the way the light is hitting it and the way that the rock is created, it looks exactly like the famous Bigfoot picture, the video back in the 1960s. With the kind of striding guy.
Yeah, I've seen that.
It looks just like that, and there was saying, "Oh, it's Bigfoot is on Mars," was the story.
I think I remember seeing people talking about that. And they were putting the pictures up, saying, "Yeah, that really looks like Bigfoot." And
and that's the Mars rover is not really on Mars. It's just this film studio. It's
Oh yeah, that was one as well. There's a guy behind the rock.
No, the full picture, it's minuscule compared to the fucking unmatched expanse it is. It's a rock, it's a shadow. It's funny as fuck.
It's a shadow of a rock.
But
That's all it is.
when it comes to pareidolia and apophenia, which is, again, it's related. I mean, pareidolia is a form of apophenia. But the most commonly asserted one is it's religious figures. Jesus, Virgin Mary, and the symbol of Muhammad. They are the most common. Particularly Jesus, right? I think the Jesus one is so fucking funny. I've seen listed in like paper and press. Jesus on a drain pipe. I've seen Jesus in fucking like Marmite lids, jam lids. You know, oh my god, I put my toaster in. I popped Jesus on my toaster.
It was on melted butter.
Yeah, melted butter on a slice of toast. And these kind of bullshit make it into mainstream press. And it's like, oh, it's further convincing me that I'm being watched by an overseer or the Lord Jesus Christ. Fuck off! It's a fucking slice of toast.
Yeah. It's your pareidolia that's making you see that.
Yes, pareidolia makes you see that. Virgin Mary shape as well. You know, the head shoulders of a nun kind of figure. But
yeah, do you remember that one that we saw? In America, there was that cafe that was called the Virgin Mary Cafe.
Well, it's dubbed that. It
Yeah.
wasn't called that.
It was dubbed that. But because the window cleaners.
It's on Penn and Teller's bullshit.
Yeah, but the way it came through, the shadow of the so-called Virgin Mary came through on all the other windows all the way down the street where the sun was shining through.
Yeah. Well, strictly speaking, what happened there is it's the window cleaners. They obviously, when you put washing up liquid over the window, when the light hits it, it kind of creates the prism kind of spectrum effect.
Yeah.
And it's just that when they go to, there was a droplet of water or something falling down on it where they spray it. So when the window that opened upwards came up, so basically it opened outwards, but went upwards on the outside. When the water is hitting it, the spray, it kind of then ran down the window, so it kind of created the effect of a head, then shoulders, the way the water was coming down this window that was covered in a spectrum of like washing out liquid.
That's right, yeah.
But that was also the effect on every other window, and it was on the same building more than once. But everyone's going there thinking it's fucking blessed by the Virgin Mary.
Yeah, which, if you believe that, then all the other buildings down the street are also blessed by the Virgin Mary. You've seen things.
Yeah, it's true. They're created in the mind of the beholder, and they're not supernatural, they're not divine influence. I guess people can take a little bit of comfort about it, but the truth is, it's all in your own head.
Yeah, that's it.
It's like the placebo belief.
Yeah, it is, actually.
Jesus has loved me. That's why he came to me in my slice of toast.
That would explain why a lot of people feel better when they go to
Like
these
they're going to-
places
going
where
to-
they can see those things.
Yeah. They feel good because the placebo effect is actually happening.
Yeah.
Well, Jesus has been here. No, he hasn't. He just made toast here.
Yeah. But that makes you feel good.
I guess it would, yeah. I don't know about you. I would not feel good knowing that a deity, or the son of a deity, is appearing on my slice of Marmite and toast.
I would be a bit apprehensive if I saw that.
Would you eat it?
No.
It's just toast.
I
That's the
know,
point.
but if I thought that it was a supernatural being and it was on my toast, why would I eat it?
You're not helping the situation here, Sylvia. We're here arguing it's just a slice of toast with Marmite and it's
No,
the
you're
pareidolia effect.
you're saying if I believe in it, because I don't. So if I saw that, I would eat it right now. But if I did, then I
Alright,
wouldn't.
okay. So because I guess if you didn't believe it, I guess you would even see the figure.
No, I wouldn't. Or
look
I'd
at-
see it and go,
yeah.
oh, that's interesting.
Bite his head off.
Yeah.
It'd be like a jelly baby, wouldn't it? You know?
Yeah, it would be. Yeah, it would be like a jelly baby. Yeah. Straight for the head.
Yeah, everyone goes to the head.
Yeah.
Okay, rounding up the last segment of the show before we play our featured track of the night is a look at the quirky stories of the Fortean variety that has caught our eye. So let's just dive right in with this one here. We have, well, how do we put this? Imagine there you are laying in bed with your wife. All's quiet, not a sound. The next thing you know, there's a cow falling through your roof and takes you out, kills you. Well, this is a true story of a Brazilian man who died after a cow fell through his roof and landed on top of him while he was in bed. That's right. A guy called Maria DeCesar, 45, was lying in bed with his wife Lenny when the animal fell through the ceiling in their home in southeast Brazil. The cow is believed to escape from a nearby farm, climbed on top of the couple's house, which backs onto a steep hill on Wednesday night. The corrugated roof immediately gave way, and the 1.5-ton cow fell 8 feet through the ceiling and landed on his side of the bed. His wife and the cow have been reportedly escaped unharmed. Now, rescuers took Mr. De Souza to hospital with a fractured leg and no obvious injuries. Strange that he died a few hours later with internal bleeding. And his brother-in-law, Carlos, he says being crushed by a cow in your bed is the last way one would expect to leave this earth. But in my view, it wasn't the cow that killed Joe. It was the unacceptable time he spent waiting to be examined, because they would have found the internal bleeding. A sad way, but a funny story nonetheless. We said funny, that's probably the wrong word, morbid there, really. Talking of morbid, check out the story here from the other side of the Atlantic, still over in Central America. A dead man has been elected mayor of a Mexican village. That's right, a dead man. His name is Lenin Carballadillo. I believe that's how you pronounce it. He wins an election after 3 years after faking his death. That's right, he had to use a death certificate to convince police to drop an arrest warrant a few years ago. The prosecutors are investigating how the man was ever elected mayor of a village in southern Mexico 3 years after he was certified dead. It goes back to a story in 2010. In order to convince police to drop an arrest warrant against him for taking part in an alleged rape, convinced everyone that he was dead. He had a death certificate authorised. Now, he basically had spent his time low, but in recent years, he spent time campaigning and getting himself into politics, and obviously he won mayor. Or to prove who he was, he had to reveal that he didn't actually die, and thus the police are now back after him for the original crime that he was arrested for. Silly man. Next story up is, got to check this and that. This is fucking crazy. Is in America. It's in Oklahoma. A guy here. His name is Kenneth Eslow. He was arrested on Sunday after a horrified woman. Now imagine this, right, guys? Now imagine you have an outside toilet, yeah. So you have to go out the house middle of the night to go to your toilet. Imagine there you are. You're a lady. You're about to sit down, but there's a face looking at you through the bowl. There's looking up at you, right? This is exactly what this woman happened here. She says that she went out to the toilet and there was a guy inside the septic tank of her outdoor toilet. Oh, I don't know what to say about this. She'd taken her daughter to the toilet and noticed a man was looking at them from below in the bowl. He went in there. Apparently, he was taking time to look up at girls. Whatever perverts like that look at. She actually sprayed him with a fire hose, and then basically they called in the police, and they arrested him for a physical and mental evaluation. His name was, I've got his name here somewhere. Yeah, it's Kenneth Anslow, sorry. And he was arrested on Sunday. 52 years old. The mother actually beat him over the head with a tire iron, and then they called the police when he was unconscious. He's due in court. Actually, he's due in court today of recording, actually, July 15th, and he faces a 1-year jail term and a $5,000 fine. And what do you think you have to be on? What kind of mental state do you think you have to be in to be inside a septic tank of an outdoor toilet looking at whatever's coming down on top of you? The talking of coming down on top of you, this is going to hit British Parliament pretty hard. Traces of cocaine have been found in 9 toilets inside British Parliament, including in those offices where the public visitors cannot access. That's right, the Sun newspaper reported this week of widespread use of drugs inside the British House of Parliament. The findings, when considered in the context of a strict airport staff security check, you can imagine going into the House of Commons and the House of Lords. This raises speculations that it's the MPs themselves are the ones using the drugs. The paper is reporting that white powder swabs used by the police to identify cocaine use. Traces were found outside Strangers Bar, which is the favourite location for MPs and their House of Lords committees, and as well as being found in exclusive areas near the Liberal Democrat and Conservative MPs in Portcullis House. They've found drugs on a number of occasions in 2010, and they've also seized cannabis rather than cocaine back then. Cocaine is now certainly one of the more present drugs that have been that have been caught. Now, Robert Oxley of the Taxpayers Alliance says that he's expressed concern. Pay is high enough. Westminster is to be high enough there, but then the occupants also being high as well. Britain also is alleged to have the highest number of cocaine users in Europe, well over 1 million users of the white powdered drug. What do you guys think about that? We've got MPs charging expenses, they want more money, they want second houses. Of course, when that went public, you know, they paid up some of their expenses and everyone was outraged. And quite recently, the MPs have actually got all their money back. They're the ones that we actually paid on the expenses. That way, a quick, simple, backhanded deal, they got all that money they paid in those expenses back. And now they've also been proved to be high on cocaine at the same time. I understand the job must be really pressuring, but that's the kind of role you have when you're running a country. But clearly, a lot of them are smoking the white powder, so who knows what kind of other things they have going on down in our government head office. Down in head office, well, up in a mountain. Up in a mountain indeed. This is a mountain up in Wales, I believe it is. Now imagine you were up there climbing, you're going through the rocks as part of the Three Peaks Challenge, Scafell Pike, and you find yourself an octopus on a rock up a mountain. That's right, Dave Enscow, 43 from Stockport, he leads mountain walks and he found a octopus at the top of Scafell Pike in Cumbria. His first reaction, that was someone carried it up here, but it's quite possibly a bird may have dropped it. Their volunteers have to remove a number of rubbish, because basically they have the Three Peaks Challenge that is quite regular, and that basically in the course of 24 hours, mountaineers challenge themselves to climb mountains, Snowdon, Ben Nevis and Scafell Pike, which are the three highest mountains in Scotland, England and Wales in this short period of time. So the mountain does attract a lot of people climbing it as part of the challenge. So basically they have to go up there quite regularly and to clean it. But nobody expected to see an octopus. I mean, balls I guess are one thing, but litter, I don't know. But an octopus, that's something else completely. Here we are, we're going to end on this story here because this one's just funny as fuck. Birmingham man reports an ugly prostitute to the police, is the headline that the Birmingham Mail put out. Basically, a guy rang West Midlands Police to tell them that he had had sex with a prostitute and he wanted to invoke the Sales of Good Act. Now, the Sales of Good Act, let's give a quick line on what this is. It's consumer rights stipulating that goods must be sold of satisfactory quality, be fit for purpose, and must match the seller's description. Now, of course, well, I say of course, the guy in question here, he had rang Solihull in Birmingham, and basically he said he had slept with a prostitute. Well, clearly she wasn't up to fit for purpose, and said that she was ugly and wasn't good in bed. However, the police officer then told him that he actually was committing an offence himself, as that soliciting for sex was illegal. As we all know, the force then sent the man a letter warning him about wasting police time as well as. You can only imagine, right, there you are, you've obviously slept with a woman that you've had to pay for. Oh, obviously, the fact that he didn't know she was ugly when he picked her up off the street means I guess they must have arranged it by phone or by email or, Facebook alternatives, shall we say. They've obviously met up, they've clearly had sex, either he must have been drunk or she was face down in the pillow. And then, when on seeing her face, and obviously the act itself just not being up to par, he rang the police to say, "Sales a good act. This was terrible." Would you even call the police? I mean, really, I don't think I'd even have the balls to call the police. I just don't think I could. But anyway, wasting police time is a serious offence and carries a maximum sentence of 6 months imprisonment. So here we are going to round up Rabbit Hole of Reality, episode 5. That has been your Fortean countdown for the night, and we'll see you on the next show. So playing us out tonight, we have a cover of Sick of Sarah's autograph by my good friends over at Beyond the Dawn. Visit their website at beyondthedawn.co.uk. Two lovely ladies, Lorna and Bex, making the track here. This was recorded at the Twisted Tea Party back, I believe it was May. And yeah, it was a good night that night. So listen in and take note of the kind of style that they play. It's really cool, really unique.
Every day, no come a little closer, listen to the words I've got to say. I'm not messing around, going to
have been listening to The Rabbit Hole That Is Reality radio show in association with UK Collapse, ukcollapseradio.com.